What's up? I'm Dan Fredenberg, and this is another Chance Encounter. Hey, what's up? I'm Dan Fredenberg. I'm a commercial real estate guy. I'm from the internet. We're seeing more properties like this being built in front of a house that's going to be torn down soon. I understand that there are power lines that are getting kind of close. What's up again? This is Dan Fredenberg, and that there is a commercial real estate building. I'm in front of a green screen today, which is a little bit different, but I'm joined by Danie. How you doing today, Danie?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm fantastic because after all, my very favorite audience member is joining us today. And why is my favorite audience member joining us today? It's because this is a chance encounter where I interview commercial real estate syndicators, and that means investors, buyers, sellers, all that kind of stuff. But why would I decide to do that? Well, part of it is because if you want access to private deals, which are known as 506B deals, you need to have a documented prior substantive relationship because the SEC will want to see that. But before we get too excited into the fine details of Danie's business and all that kind of stuff, Danie, do you want to say a thing or two about yourself?
Hi, I'm Danie Batchelder. I'm just stepping into the real estate syndication space. You know, 12 years of professional nutritionist behind me and looking to grow in a different direction.
Beautiful. I love it. I love it. And of course, now I need to turn on my other camera here or else it's going to freak out. So I hit that and then I hit this and then I hit the one that's already on there, add existing, boom, and I hit okay. There I am, but I'm on top and now I'm getting bigger and now I'm getting moved away from there. Put that there. Boom, there we go. So the 5 distinct motivations. I've noticed that after talking to all these different syndicators, everybody has their own unique reason for why they're getting involved in this business. But if you really get down to the brass tacks, there's really these 5. Before I say that, though, I got to say, but wait, check your 8. And Danie, I don't know if you can see through your camera and into the audiences. It's like around 7 or 8 o'clock. There might be a hideous red subscribe button on their device, and they really should do something about it. No, it's just a stupid joke I always do in every episode. But let's talk about the 5 distinct motivations in a commercial real estate deal. The very first one is preservation of purchasing power. Now, what on earth is that? Well, some people, they already have a portfolio of assets, and the way they make ends meet is from the proceeds from ownership. So the only reason why this crew will make the effort to make another acquisition is because the inflation is wearing away at the purchasing power of their cash flow, because the idea is not to get rid of your performing assets, or if they can buy at a steep discount, that makes a lot of sense. But that's not why I'm involved in this. What I'm up to is trading time directly for wealth. See, my background is in technology. Specifically, it's the CRM space, the e-commerce CRM space. So it means online businesses, I make it so that their sales actually work and happen, and the fulfillment happens automatically. But the problem with that is when you are a high wage earner or a high salary earner, you are paying more in tax than anybody else. And so it hit me, it's like, how do I pivot so that I'm getting rewarded in the form of deployed capital, aka equity. So that's why I'm involved in these deals. But a lot of people, they come to commercial real estate because they hear there's big numbers involved, and what the real motivation is to gain their time and their schedule back. Maybe that means they just want to fast track their retirement, so they're going to hustle like crazy until then. But it might just be that they want to work fewer weeks per month or fewer months per year or something like that. And that's why they're involved in that. And that's really distinct from the next 2 because they're never going to quit. Like this next one, they're so ambitious. They want to buy their entire hometown. They're after that generational wealth. They want to get those buildings with their names on it and all that kind of stuff, making sure that their great grandchildren never have to hold a day job. And that's great because they're going to hustle into their 90s. Just like this last group, But the difference is this last group, they've found a sector of society, or maybe it's animals, or maybe it's the environment, who knows what it is. But if you really want to make a big impact, there's a financial component of that that can't be ignored. And that's why some people are making these acquisitions. But, Danie already said you're new to this, but of those 5 different motivations, what combination of those do you think describes you best?
Oh gosh, I really like how you broke that down. I think you nailed it with those five. I would say I resonate with probably two of those the most. And you hit it on the head, right? Trading my time for wealth. I think we're all kind of involved in that rat race. Myself, I'm in the nutrition and wellness space. So trading my time for wealth and for the health of other people, and by proxy wearing down my own health, just really doesn't make sense anymore. So and that kind of leads into, number five, also helping people. That's what I do for a living. That's where my servant heart lay, is helping people. If I can't be healthy, I can't help people. So, I'm going to trade my time differently. I'm going to build my wealth, my financial health, so that I can then pass that on.
I love it. I love it. So my next question though is, because some people, when they're new to this, they see the dollar signs, it's like, oh, this building is like, $5 million, $10 million, $100 million, all that kind of stuff, and they're like, I want a piece of that. But of course, this is a very competitive industry. I like to make the joke that real estate is the world's second oldest profession, but there are risks involved, and that's what needs to be confirmed in these interviews. So to do that, I have this fill in the blank. So Danie, there are many popular investment asset classes, but I think blank is too risky. So real estate or otherwise, what's too risky for you?
Too risky for me, continuing to do what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I totally get that. It is, once you do the math, you find out, like acquisition fees, like what kind of numbers you're looking at, it really stops making much sense to stick with it. Unless you got a ton of contacts that you get from. But before we get too excited with that, this every time it comes on, it kind of kills me. It's another thing that Subway, the subscribe sandwich, that's really something. But enough about subscribing. In every episode of Chance Encounters, I pull out the Dan Does Deals Commercial Competency Cube. And what's that all about? Well, it has the 6 different core competencies that I found really make up a deal. And the important thing for you, though, in the audience, is I want to make sure that, one, you can understand how my guest fits into these deals. But more importantly, for me personally, I want to make sure that you can effectively communicate on the subject of commercial real estate. Because if you want to get into this business, that's going to be the most decisive factor in your success. And so in every episode of Chance Encounters, I go through all 6 sides, and that's what we're going to do right now. So first one is the repositioners. The repositioners are looking at a bunch of different property, and they're doing a bunch of paperwork. What is this paperwork that you're talking about? Well, first thing, there's a fancy word, is they got to underwrite the deal. And that means they have to do the math. They have to do the arithmetic and figure out, first of all, because they're an acquisitions person, they need to find out, is this seller actually even telling the truth about how much this property is actually making? Same with the broker. You need to actually go through the numbers and figure it out. Now, many people just mean, like, say that that's an acquisitions person or an investor. I specifically call them repositioners, because the difference in what they're doing is they're trying to figure out how to find more upside after they pick up the property. And the easiest spot to get some upside is if you have good enough financier relations. And of course, a financier then would be somebody who only deals with paper and money. They do not do asset management. They don't do any of those sorts of things. But of course, every repositioner has some investor relations, as I was mentioning. But the reason why that's so important is because if you can get a more advantageous loan, that goes straight to the bottom line of the business. So if the loan is less expensive, you're making more money. The next place that the repositioner is going to look is to operations. So they're going to say, how can we get fewer of these these Benjamins going down the toilet. But of course, there's a lot more to operations than just unclogging toilets and mowing lawns and collecting rents and all that kind of stuff. There's also a marketing component, the leasing agent, and that has to do with the vacancy part. And that's one of my fortes is marketing, along with the automation from CRMs. So when I'm joining on a GP team, that is something that's kind of a fallback skill of mine. So if there's a vacancy rate problem, I can step in even if there's a third party management in place. If they're not filling the units, then I can figure out some new plans for making that happen. But because, as I said, commercial real estate's so competitive, it's such an old industry, chances are more efficient operations aren't going to be enough. So the repositioner gets a contractor team to do a value add or to do some renovations. And that's all well and good. It makes sense that that gives you upside because the next resident would be theoretically happy to pay more in rent than the previous one. And that's straight out upside. But of course, you can keep on doing what we call capital expenditure. In other words, fixing stuff up. You can keep on doing that and, not ROI at all, not get any return on your investment. And that's why you have to be careful what you do. You need a lot of oversight. And if you are like me, see, I'm from the internet. The problem you're going to run into is you're going to need a local to keep an eye on those contractors and operators and all that kind of stuff. You need somebody who is like an hour away, maybe 2 hours tops. And the reason why I need locals is because that's not going to be me. In an hour or two, I'd still be stuck at an airport. So that's just not in the cards. But when the repositioner has assembled their team and they turn around to the financier and ask the magic words, which are, of course, hey, I got like a 350 unit apartment complex and it's tens of millions of dollars. You don't happen to have tens of millions of dollars you want to lend us, do you, financiers? Well, one thing that the financier is going to need to know that a lot of coaches, they end up glossing over this. They're going to ask, who's the sponsor KP? So even if you have a bunch of physician friends or wealthy friends for whatever reason, and you want to take over a commercial property, one thing you're going to run into is if you want to be eligible for a commercial loan, somebody in the fold has to already own a similar asset. Okay, so on top of that, you also need a certain amount of liquidity, and then you need a balance sheet among the owners of at least the amount of the loan. But when you put all those together, you got yourself a commercial real estate deal. So Danie, I know you mentioned that you're new to this, so I imagine you're probably going to be doing some local features. You're going to be doing some repositioner features, and then of course some investor relations because you have to have your own network. But instead of me putting words in your mouth, where do you see your core competencies coming out from those sides of the die?
Yeah, so you're right. As I'm new, I'm still kind of investigating each of those areas. I would say my experience tells me that I'm going to be really good at the investor relations, but my life is all about meeting people where they're at and solving problems. So I feel like that will be a good place for me eventually, but I'm currently working on the repositioner and, offering my local expertise here for people that are looking in my backyard, which is the Montana area. So I know people are going to be looking here.
Excellent, excellent. And that's right where we're going, which is the buy box or the ideal property. And just so you know, when syndicators are talking to each other and say, hey, what you looking for, what's your buy box, what's your ideal property, we're really asking about three main things. The first one is going to be geography. Which states, which counties, possibly even which neighborhood. That's absolutely going to matter. The second thing is going to be the size. Okay. And we usually are talking to multifamily syndicators and investors on this show, which means apartment complexes. And the way that they figure out how big those are is by the unit count. So you're going to have a different type of group who's taking over 15 unit apartment complexes compared to the 150 unit complex deals. So that size is definitely going to matter. But the third one is called class. I separate class into two different words. The first one is condition. When it comes to condition, it's how old is the building? Is it a recent build or is it, pretty old? And then is it in good shape? Is it all beat up or is it, basically up to date? And what about the luxuries and amenities? Is it really no frills or does it have all kinds of neat, expensive luxuries in it? So that's the first meaning of class, which I call condition. Now, the other meaning of class, it has to do with the area where the property is located. So it's really asking about what's the crime rate like where that property is located. What are the school districts like where the property is located, and how much traffic does it get in general, like what's the population nearby. But both of those two meanings of the word class, they use the same rating system as in grade school, where A plus is at the top, and then A, and then A minus, and then B plus, and so on. So Danie, I don't know if you have a profile for your buy box yet, but like what can you tell me as far as geography, size, and class?
Well, if I was going to be your local person here in Montana, I would say you're looking at C and B properties.
Mhm,
20 to 50 doors. Our populations are a lot smaller out here.
mhm,
And your vintage is looking at more like the 70s. So these properties need to be repositioned. They need to be updated. So that's what we've got going on here. Currently, though, the team I've built up, we're focusing out in the North Carolina area, the Sun Belt, where we've got a little bit more experience. We've all lived out there. So out there, we're looking at more B properties in, up and coming areas. So.
I love it. I love it. The next question I have then is as far as who you can best help. I neglected to mention that if you want your own copy of the Dan Does Deals Commercial Composite Cube, you just go to dandoesdeals.com, and it's totally free. And like a dummy, I don't even ask for your email address. From a marketing perspective, you should always ask for some sort of contact information in return for your freebie. But the thing that I want to emphasize is because multifamily commercial real estate in general, it's so multifaceted. Everybody tends to be really eager to help complete teams, build teams, but at the same time we have our own unique skill sets, so we're better off helping some people more than others. Me personally, I tend to look for the sponsor KPs just because I'm the digital guy, so they're the ones who actually have the foundation prepared for a guy like me to make a really big difference. Whereas when you're first starting, you need grunts who can put in 80-hour weeks. The other one, of course, is locals, because again, I'm from the internet. So those are the two people I'm looking for. But Danie, if you have any 506B deals, don't go enticing investors. So if you have any like donuts or whatever, don't like show them on the screen, because an investor might get enticed, and that'd be awful according to the SEC. But you can say beginners, people getting into this business. But who are you on the lookout for? Who do you want to find?
I guess it looks like I'm looking for people like you.
Right, exactly. So more repositioners, just really getting to know more sponsors to figure out who to work with. Then that makes sense to me. That sounds cool.
Yep,
Yep.
absolutely.
Okay, cool. And then the last thing then is about how to reach out. Me, I got this distinct last name, so I'm super easy to find, and LinkedIn is the best spot to find me for that. But if you scan this code right here with your phone, that goes to the FAQs page of 506 BME, which is the service I offer to make sure that you've got all the IT covered and all your ducks in a row as far as your documentation of your substantive relationships with your investors. So especially if you're taking on non-accredited investors, that's super important. But Danie, if people want to reach out to you, is there a website or social media platform they should use? How should people reach out?
Yeah, I guess I'm a little old school or showing my age. I mostly use Facebook. But my website's going live next week, so be on the lookout for BB West Capital.
All right, great. And then the last thing I have, then it's actually not for you, Danie. It's for you and the camera, which is it's a public service announcement. Which is, if you've been watching this episode or in my YouTube videos in general, you might notice searing pains in your eyeballs and like migraine-like symptoms. And I'm quite confident it's because of the hideous red subscribe button that's right down there, and it's free to just click it and make that awful red button go away. It turns gray, and it's much nicer. But the reason why I prefer that people do it is because that means that maybe YouTube will start paying for these videos instead of me. And all it means for you is that my videos might show up on your list of suggestions. You can feel free to ignore those suggestions. I just appreciate the fact that you spent this time with me. Just like Danie, I appreciate you joining me today. This has been great.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you.
Awesome. Thanks. Make sure you 506B me. Any syndicators, make sure you 506B me.
Hi.
Oh, hey, yeah, here's my code. You got your QR code scanner? Okay, yeah, oh yeah, just hold it right in the square there. Okay, cool. And now you hit open in browser.
Okay.
Okay, are you already logged into 506BME?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, so there's my video. So now I'm already on your watch list. So when you get back to your hotel, you can find out what my core competencies are and my level of sophistication. Sound good?
Yeah.
I love your hat. Real estate's a scam. That's really funny.
Yeah.
Nice meeting you.
You too.
506 BME, everybody.